Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before. Imagine tuning in to real-time discussions, expert analyses, and fan interactions all at your fingertips. Each platform offers a unique experience, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. We're not just sharing stories, we're creating a community of passionate sports enthusiasts. Join us as we dive deep into the evolution of podcasting, where every episode is a chance to engage, debate, and celebrate the world of sports. This is where your voice matters and the game never stops. Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before, where sports passion meets podcasting brilliance. I'm Mike, the Bear fan, and alongside Bill, the Packer fan, and our buddy Ken Catalone, we're bringing you an incredible lineup of 38 diverse podcasters. Each one brings their unique flavor to the table, covering everything from game analysis to behind-the-scenes stories. Imagine diving deep into the minds of experts who live and breathe football, sharing insights that you won't find anywhere else.
And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. We both apologize for the delay for undisclosed reasons, but we're here to talk. We're finally back here to talk Lions, Red Wings, and Pistons, especially the Lions autopsy and how the Lions lost that NFC Divisional Playoff round game at Ford Field to the Washington Commanders, 45-31, and we're gonna. It's real simple. 5 turnovers proved costly. The defense got dismantled by Jane Daniels and company. And what else is there to say? Goff with 4 of those 5 turnovers. Jamison Williams threw the other pick. And 3 interceptions by Goff, 1 lost fumble. Man, it just surprisingly the team surprisingly fell apart before our very eyes. When they were coming in the 1 seed with home field advantage through the playoffs until the Super Bowl, they were one of the Super Bowl team favorites, and they just collapsed.
Ultimately, Taylor, it just came down to a combination of these factors. It came down to the fact that whether people want to disregard it or downplay it, it was a fact that injuries did play a factor into how this season played out. Because when you look at the names, and not just the names, but look at the position of where those names were lost, primarily.
Right, Ed. I think I lost you. But yeah, anyway, yeah, they were dismantled by injuries, all right. But at the same time, they're especially on defense. But at the same time, their offense just like completely self-destructed. Yeah, they lost Kevin Zeitler in Week 18.
I'm back.
Yep. Yeah, Kevin Zeitler was out for the NFC Divisional Playoff. He didn't play because he got hurt.
Zeiler's injury hurt, but that wasn't the reason why things were an issue on offense. I thought Christian Mahogany was doing a good job, certainly better than Grant Glasgow did, particularly on that third and 1 with his missed block leading to the strip sack on Goff, which was one of those turnovers. And again, besides the injuries catching up on the defense, particularly with Amik Robertson and Melifonwu both going down during the game, it was just something too much for the defense to overcome. Unfortunately, it doesn't help when you have a defense that's filled with 3rd stringers and 4th stringers. You know full well that your offense has to be essentially perfect, and that's what the offense was not. Too many mistakes, too many turnovers, too many times where you shot yourself in the foot. And frankly, it also comes down to play calling. It's a combination of those factors. when you see a fact that this is the 30th ranked rush defense in the league, and you see the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs was popping off as many yards as he could, as well as particularly yards per carry, the fact that you didn't run the ball at all, whether it was to Gibbs or whoever, but you didn't run the ball on that 3rd and 1 when Goff got fumbled, the fact that on that possession, you could have made this a 14-3 lead early in the game and completely taken momentum out of the sails of Washington. Instead, you gave them life. The ball was rolling, and it was downhill from there, frankly. The turnovers I mentioned before, particularly points off of turnovers between Goff's pick six, the touchdowns they scored at fumble, and of course what was it, man? It had to been the JMO interception as well. That you're talking about at least 21 points that Washington had gotten off of turnovers, and that's the difference in the game right then and there. And in a playoff format such as the NFL, where it's one and done, there is no, we'll get them game 2 or best of 3. No, it's called one and done. If you don't play your best game, you are going home. And frankly, the offense picked the worst time to play its worst game of the season, between the Goff turnovers, between the play calling, the lack of I would say, consistent touches within the running game. There is no way possible behind that O-line, in that home field, in this environment, there's no way on earth that Jahmyr Gibbs should have only gotten 14 carries and only 20 touches. No way possible. That has been your best offensive weapon the past 2 or 3 weeks, especially in light of the Montgomery injury. That has been someone who has, again, given you incredible production, incredible consistency, and also great durability as well, to where, you know what, you can give him a little bit more of the lion's share, pardon the pun, of the touches, especially the fact when you know that Montgomery wasn't particularly 100%. I don't care if he was back for this game or not. You know that he was still not his full self. But even still, the fact that Jahmyr did not get enough touches, when you contrast that to the fact that why are the Eagles in the Super Bowl right now? Why are they going to be playing 2 weeks from tonight instead of the Lions? Well, it's simple. They knew the assignment, they knew the objective, and they didn't play around. They didn't get cute. They decided to keep it simple, and that's what you just have to do in the playoffs. Keep it simple. If your if your running game in general is working, do not abandon it. There's no way, there's no reason as to why Jahmyr Gibbs should have only gotten 20 touches in that game. Contrast that to how the Eagles and their playoff run, whatever they've done, they've given the ball to Saquon Barkley whenever and wherever possible. You saw him get 30 touches against the Rams. You saw what he did today against the Commanders. That's what happens when you have a weapon like this in a format such as that, and you have a great offensive line. Use your strengths. The Lions did not. Frankly, the way their play calling in terms of Ben Johnson was concerned, you can, I hate to throw this out there, especially in light of recent events of how things transpired after the game, but if you wanted to make a theory that maybe, just maybe, Ben Johnson was not focused, or he had one foot out the door, or he wasn't, again, completely, whatever you want to call it. You want to say that he potentially was throwing the game based on how his play calling was going, and the fact that he did take the job with the Bears afterwards. Okay, you're more entitled to that theory, but even still, it's just baffling to see that this offense, which was so productive and so efficient all year, picked the worst time to have its worst game. I know the defense. People will still talk about the defense, but come on, you had to know what the defense was going to be coming into this game. You knew what the offense had to do throughout this game, and they did not do their job. They did not, they did not handle time of possession. They probably had a good advantage time possession, but they did not make the use of those possessions. The turnovers, the lack of finishing drives, the fact that you kept, making mistakes and put your battered defense back out on the field. Those were the things you did not need to do in this type of format and setting. And unfortunately, you did that, and that's why, instead of the possibility of you being the ones going to the Super Bowl instead of the Eagles, no, you're just going to be known as the '98 Vikings. You got 15 wins, you got the 1 seed, but you choked at home and you're not going to the Super Bowl.
Yep, and that's karma for you. It really is. So Before we get to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the play calling, the Lions are getting a lot of players back from injured reserve, including Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Carlton Davis Jr., Marcus Davenport, Malcolm Rodriguez. But at least a couple of those players that I listed, Carlton Davis and Marcus Davenport are hitting free agency.
Well, I can say that at least in the case of Carlton Davis, they may be looking to try and bring him back. I think that's what Brad Holmes alluded to in his end of the season press conference the other day. He also mentioned the fact that Kirby Joseph, whenever possible, should be in line for a contract extension, and well deserved. He's been playing like one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in all football ever since he got to the league. And frankly, production and performance like that deserves to be rewarded.
Yep, indeed.
But in terms of the rest of the defense, particularly around the D line and the front seven, another reason why you saw Washington perform so well as they did offensively, the pass rush did not get home. They could not get home at all. Whether they tried to bring forward, they tried to bring a blitz, nothing was working. And Cliff Kingsbury played a tremendous game. We called a tremendous game, I should say. And he knew when the right place to target the blitz, to go after the blitz, target the Lions' aggression, use that against them, and it worked flawlessly. As much credit as we give to how the Lions performed badly, we must give at least much credit to how well Washington, at least in that game, executed and did their job admirably well.
And took advantage.
So, yeah, absolutely. So now the fact that those names that you listed, in the case of some, at least in the case of Aleem McNeil, he won't be back probably around until October or maybe November, based on the severity of his injury and when it occurred. As for Aiden Hutchinson, more than likely, based on what we've seen and reported before, he should be ready to go week 1 of next season. So that is not a problem, especially the fact that now we don't have to worry about him trying to quote unquote rush back in time for the Super Bowl. We don't have to worry about that. He's going to have a full off season to rest, fully recover, get 100% healthy, which is what you would want to see, and at least in terms of Aiden's future and his longevity, you would rather have the safety and knowledge of that you'd rather see him take his next snap at the start of the next season fully healthy instead of trying to risk things in the Super Bowl. But exactly. in terms of what the Lions have to go after, potentially off-season moves, first and foremost, you may have to upgrade your whole athletic training department, because my goodness, the amount of injuries that we saw rack up and pile up was just unfathomable, hitherto undreamt of. But other than that, if you're Brad Holmes, which again, you have rarely, if ever, seen me criticize Brad Holmes on practically any move he's made. I will say though, it was kind of sadly ironic that almost essentially a year, or at least over a year, or close to the year to the day of when I posted a tweet, probably was on the night of the national championship game itself, if not the day after, that said, "Hey, Brad Holmes, you will not go wrong. You will not do wrong if you go after and draft Mikey Sanders still in the draft." Go look it up. The tweet's up there. It's still up there. And lo and behold, 1 year later, what do we see? We saw Mikey Sanders still, proving that big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games, getting 2 interceptions. I believe on both of those occasions, his turnovers, or the possessions following those turnovers, Washington got points out of. So again, his contribution was as incredibly important as was the rest of the team's performance was. But that's just an example of, hey, sometimes some of these fans, they kind of know what they're talking about, particularly when it comes to position of need, fit with the team, culture, and all that. I thought Mikey Sanders still would have been absolutely perfect to get. But again, that's no knock on Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold did a tremendous job in his rookie year here, and I have high hopes for him. But man, you just can't help but wonder and imagine if the roles were reversed, if we had Mikey Sanders still in that situation, would things be different? We just don't know. But I think that's something to consider for the draft, at least if you're Brad Holmes, that listen, we did a good job in helping taking care of our secondary. Now we have to finally address our pass rush or lack thereof. Because, yeah, we may bring back Zadarius Smith. Yeah, we may get a Lee McNeil back and Aiden back from injury, but we still need constant, persistent force and pressure from the D line. And it's got to be from something that we do either through an offseason transaction or, dare I say, looking in the draft.
And don't forget about DJ Reader.
Yep.
Because he's part of it. He's part of the pass rush as well.
Yeah, but he's more focused as terms of the run stopping. And by the way, I think the injury to Lee McNeil was more devastating than the injury to Hutchinson, because at least even though Hutchinson went down, you were still getting solid production from McNeil with his ability to generate a pass rush at the very least. And then when he went down, that essentially vanished, even with the efforts of Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as you mentioned, McNeil won't be back until likely won't be back until October or November of later this year, this calendar year. That's a damn long ass time. Now the departing coordinators. Ben Johnson got hired by the Chicago Bears, former offensive coordinator, as head coach of the Bears. Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn got hired by the New York Jets as their new head coach. So I know. So we're aware now that the Lions have promoted linebackers coach Kelvin Shepard to defensive coordinator, which is a good move. Now let's hit it on the head. Who can replace Ben Johnson? There are options out there.
Well, there are some options. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to promote from within house like they did before. I think the guy the person who runs the passing game, who was the passing game coordinator, his name escapes me at the moment. I believe his name is Tanner or Tyler, one of those names. Ingerland, I believe, was his name. I saw his name as potential front runner on the list. If you want to look at that scenario, that could be one. Depending on how things go in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't mind. Now, hear me out, but it's just throwing out there. I wouldn't mind if they tried to go after the Eagles and take Kellen Moore, because you saw what he was able to do in the postseason, was able to do in terms of the game plan, and also you also saw knowing what to do of knowing when to run the freaking football and when to get the ball to your hot running back and when to utilize the running game effectively. I felt like Ben Johnson in certain moments and special certainly both in this game and especially in the NFC Championship game, got too confident, got away from the run, and you saw how it came back to bite him. So, I mean, Kellen Moore could be one name, but they may very well go in house. That prediction.
I like Kellen Moore. I really do, because as you mentioned, he sticks more to the run, just in case. Especially considering how hot Jahmyr Gibbs has been throughout the divisional playoff round, or throughout Week 18, one of the two. So that would be my number one pick as a replacement for Ben Johnson.
Just something to consider.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Thank you. Yes. So, other than that, the Lions have hired Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line coach Casey Rogers as defensive line coach and promote Hank Fraley to run game coordinator and offensive line coach. What do you think of them?
Frank Haley, him staying as offensive line coach and being promoted to run game coordinator is very essential, because that was, in terms of the Lions offensively, that was their bread and butter. That was their DNA. That was how they established and set the tone at the start of games throughout the majority of this season. So keeping him was very crucial and essential to how things were going to go potentially for the Lions in this upcoming next season. Getting Casey Rogers from Tampa, interesting move. A move I might like when you consider the fact that under his watch, we saw, for example, their recent draft pick, Elijah Cansey. He has grown in his first couple of years or so in the league in the season into a stout young defensive tackle, knowing not just in terms of stopping the run, but also in terms of getting after the passer. That is something that you would like to see being brought over to Detroit, regardless of, we see more of Aiden coming back or a couple of our defensive linemen coming back, whoever we get in the draft or whatever the case may be. But getting a coach like that, which could be a potential upgrade over Terrell Williams, if I can be honest with you, because as much as I liked and heralded the move of seeing Williams come here, overall, and again, I know the injuries were a factor, but overall, just didn't really see that oomph, that boost in production from the D line. You only really saw it from Aiden and McNeil, and then when they went down, everything else died. So we'll have to see who else can take that step up in development under Casey Rogers' tutelage. But keeping your O-line coach was extremely important. I can definitely vouch for that.
Me too.
Yeah, at least how about this? At least with these coaches, hopefully sometime, if I don't want the situation to happen again, but if the situation comes again, maybe the coaches will know when to call a timeout instead of letting a 12-man on the field penalty, be a central backbreaker on a fourth down when you need to get the ball back. I doubt the defense was going to stop them anyway, but yeah, you can't have situations, you can't have bad breaks like that in a playoff game. Now, hopefully,
They're avoidable.
With the known stars, with the known experience being tucked into you now, you can use that hopefully as the proper motivation for what to go after next year for.
Exactly. As a coach, you just got to use your head. Those are avoidable, All right, so we'll stay on top of them throughout the rest of this offseason and throughout the preseason.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you do nothing but just wish them the best in their endeavors, and congratulations, especially to Aaron Glenn. I'm very happy to see him get an opportunity to be a head coach in the league. Most importantly, especially of all teams, with the team that he started his career with in the Jets. So,
Yes.
very happy for him. Wish him the best of luck, and same thing for Rich Johnson, even if it's with those damn Bears.
Yeah, the competition is on, but good luck to Aaron Glenn with that butt fumble of a franchise.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He's got the right pieces. Essentially, with the offense and the offensive weapons they have, it's tailor made for what he wants to do. They just got to fix it at all line if you're in Chicago.
Exactly. So the Red Wings, like we mentioned on our last episode, they knocked off the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers 5-2, but the rest of their road was rough. 5-1, losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning, losing 4-1 at the Dallas Stars, and then losing 2-1 on overtime at the Philadelphia Flyers at Wells Fargo. But then they come back and win 2 straight, 4-2 at home over the Montreal Canadiens, and then 2-0 at home over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Wow, a gutsy win by the Red Wings. Cam Talbot pitched a shutout, his 33rd career shutout, first career, particularly against the Bolts. That's amazing. Marco Kasper scored against the Lightning, and then Michael Rasmussen, even though he got blatantly tripped by Nikita Kucherov, he still scored the empty net goal, which declined what was a delayed penalty. But and Rasmussen, from what I hear from Detroit Hockey Now, appears to be okay, which is good news, thank God. And still not quite. I haven't heard a hearing from on Kucherov yet, but he might get one soon. But it was But it was a trip, but it just caught. Unfortunately, it just accidentally caused Rasmussen to crash into the net. But the empty net goal still counted.
That's one minor takeaway. Excuse me, one negative takeaway from an otherwise very positive night, and a much needed positive 2 nights in terms of what the Red Wings have been going through over the past week or so. So because they were flirting with that second wild card spot, but with the recent performance over the past few games, it's kind of fluctuated. Now they're still 5 points or so back of the second wild card spot. They're at 51 points, but they need to make sure that they finish this month strong to go into February, go into the All-Star break, go into potentially the trade deadline as looking as viable of a potential playoff team as they possibly can.
Yep, 51 points. 50. They're 4 behind the Lightning. The Lightning are at 55 points. They're tied. They hold a tiebreaker with the Columbus Blue Jackets at 55 points. The Lightning 26-19-3. Blue Jackets 24-19-7. The Red Wings right now 23-21-5. With Canadians and Rangers in between. Canadians 24-20-5. Rangers 24-21-4. By the way, the Bruins still hold that first wildcard spot, 56 points, 25-20-6. But the Flyers and Islanders and Penguins are creeping up, but the Sabres are just out of the fray, holding at 41. Flyers are at 50. Islanders are at 49. Penguins are at 48. The competition still heats up.
And it's going to be that way, I think, obviously for the remainder of the season.
Yeah. And the Los Angeles Kings come into town on Monday at 7. The Kings, third place in the Pacific Division at 58 points. And then the Red Wings go up northwest of the border to Western Canada against the Oilers, Flames, and Canucks Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then they head up to Seattle a week from Tuesday at 10 to take on the Kraken, face off against the Kraken. And the Red Wings smashed the Kraken 6-2 in their first and previous meeting at Little Caesars Arena.
So what's his basic category?
Territory, but really,
we'll basically categorize this as the Pacific, the Pacific zone, the Pacific time zone the Pacific time zone trip. Depending, because we consider the fact of the region that they're going to, the teams that they're playing, and the cities that they're playing, and the time zones that they'll be playing at the same time. It kind of reminds me of some of those West Coast trips where they were facing, where you had to face the Kings and then the Sharks and then the Ducks. This kind of reminds me of that a little bit. And it's another viable stretch of games to where the Red Wings can keep themselves within the thick of things with the wild card chase.
Yeah, except it's a little different because they're in Western Canada. The Oilers, the Flames, and the Canucks. In the past, the Red Wings have had trouble in Western Canada.
They have.
But they've had their share of ups over there. They got 5 or 6 points in the 09-10 season, as we remember. But really,
oh, nice. Talking about a stretch from 15 years ago. That's going to make me feel optimistic.
Yeah. But their focus is on the present. They just got to keep playing effing hockey, like Todd McClellan would say. And they are 10-4-1 since he was hired. All right, so the Pistons, they lost to the Phoenix Suns 125-121. They beat the Houston Rockets 107-96. They beat the Atlanta Hawks 114-104 in a game where the Pistons led by as many as 21 points. Wow. Yet they turned the ball over 21 times, and then they lost to the Orlando Magic 121-113 in a game where the Pistons just lost control in the fourth quarter. And this is just another one of those games where you let your foot up. If you're the Pistons, you let your foot off the accelerator and the opposition takes advantage. You got to play 48 minutes.
Definitely
Keep
one
your
of
foot
those.
on the accelerator.
Definitely one of those learning lesson type of games. You would hope, especially with how they need to, in terms of keeping their composure in certain moments and situations as well, too.
Exactly. Pistons head to Cleveland Monday and then to Indiana on Wednesday, and they're home against the Dallas Mavericks and Bulls and Hawks again to begin a 6-game homestand. A 6-game homestand. Wow.
Now, in terms of where they're currently seated in the East and what they're striving for, I mean, you did remember Cade Cunningham himself was on Inside the NBA this past week and mentioned, excuse me, in terms of his goals for the remainder of the season. Clearly, he wants the Pistons in a playoff series. He doesn't want to have to worry about any type of play in or any of that nature. That's 6th seed and above. That's what he's aiming for. That's what he's striving for. And these next 5 games, 3 of them being against divisional opponents, you have a good chance to make up some ground. And I would say continue making jumps up the ladder to potentially get into the top 5, maybe even the top 4 of the East. Who knows? We'll see how things will go. But you will absolutely gladly take the production and development and the progress of what we're seeing this year compared to what we've seen over the last year or 2 or 3 or 4 for the Pistons. It is an absolute night and day difference. And it's a tremendous job by the franchise and organization of turning this around in just a 1-year span overall.
Exactly. So, what all did we learn in this episode?
We learned that the Lions still have to figure things out in terms of putting the final pieces together, making the final necessary steps, crucial steps, in terms of crossing that hurdle, getting over that hump, and becoming that perennial championship contender and eventually championship team. Hopefully they got their own learning lessons from this playoff game, this experience against the Commanders, of knowing what to do and what not to do when it comes to game plan and execution and ball security. We also learned that the Red Wings are trying to figure out their rhythm, or what their place in standing is in terms of the Eastern Conference and the wild card chase, as they have their own stretch of games coming up, potentially especially with the All-Star break and trade deadline looming. And we frankly continued to learn that the Pistons, as young as they are, as feisty as they can be, they have proven themselves as to be one of the great turnaround stories in not just the NBA, but in all of sports in just 1-year span. When you put together the right coaching, when you put together the right lineups, and at least a marginal improvement in the roster to create better spacing and matchup opportunities for your best players, and despite the fact that you're doing this without one of your best players, Jaden Ivey, due to injury, you can't help but be impressed. And it starts and ends with the fact that you have a franchise player, a face of the franchise in Cade Cunningham, that you know that you have to surround with and build into and build around to make this as successful a venture as possible.
Exactly. So, that's all we've learned in this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like its videos. Turn on all notifications on the bell icon. And watch its live episodes in full to learn everything. Click or tap on live for our latest episode. For our latest episodes. And follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker, and join its supporters club. Follow me on X, TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky and YouTube at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and Blue Sky and YouTube at EdSmith313. Business shoutouts go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation, Cadillac Grill, Cadillac Nutrition, Cadillac Horizon Books, Cali Tickets. Call 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Cops and Donuts, Front Porch Suttons Bay, Creative Embroidery in Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City, the El Cilantro Taco Shop in Petoskey, Hooters of Saginaw, Flint, and Taylor, It's a Denise Jewelry in Lake City, Let's Roll With It Rolled Ice Cream, Meyer for providing me M-Perks services. I just saved $1 per gallon on my trip to its gas station in Cadillac. Michigan Coffee Company, Northern Auto Lab in Lake City, Northern Star Event Rentals, 231-884-8195, and on Facebook, Positive Chimney and Fireplace, Pro Quality Cleaners, Raven Social Restaurant, Union Birmingham and Ferndale, United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, Fletcher's Pub, Texas Corners in Kalamazoo, United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield, Simply Delightful, and Well-Being with Catherine Palms. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation of the Huddle Sports Network. We'll be back again another time, probably a week next week, Thursday or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that. Until a week from Thursday, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips signing off. But remember, we observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Stay on the lookout. Hit them with a hind.
Take care and stay safe, everyone.